It's Friday, November 15th, 2024. Start off as we typically do with our promotional segment, where I tell you very simply that if you'd like to support the show, you can go to supportourshow.com. I almost said support the show. Geez, I don't know if I looked that one up. I think I did. I think only support our show was available.
Yeah,
and I have a feeling it's because
available.
Yeah, because I think probably if people read it too fast, they think it says support tour show. Because I keep doing that, and I've had to double-check my spelling, even though I've done it every single time.
SupportOurShow.com.
Yes. Unlike the last one I got was Support Our Show, where I didn't read it correctly and bought a useless domain. So always
and you can check out
check. Yeah.
my audio project on YouTube of Artificial Fear.
No, incorrect. You're doing it wrong. If you
that?
want to support Lando's work, go to patreon.com/OrlandoBrew, or go over and look at his YouTube channel, youtube.com/OrlandoBrew. You start off with the option that gets you money.
Oh, and I don't. And my mind said, go check out
I know
the art
you don't.
first.
That's what I'm here for.
Okay.
That's why that's why I'm your business manager.
Yeah, of sorts. Yes, you are. Yeah, you would.
Business consultant. Speaking of promotional things, which I'm normally terrible at with our stuff, there is a new video posted which astonishingly did not get blocked by YouTube.
Is this
I had prepared
Doug
a whole. Yes, I had done a whole because the export on this show took 14 hours.
Whoa.
So I did the. Oh, they do because it's 4 hours and change long or so. Okay. So and with the amount of graphics and everything, it just stacks up. So I knew it was going to be a long export. That's fine. So right after I did the first one, I immediately then did a second one with all the video cut and with a scene missing thing insulting YouTube and copyright law in the United States and the whole thing. And amazingly, nothing got blocked. The only warning we got was from Tangerine Dream about using their music, and they allow you to use it. You just can't monetize, which we don't. Therefore, no problem. So that is out, and it is a double feature on Michael Mann's The Keep, which is where you'll hear the Tangerine Dream track, and Clive Barker's Lord of Illusions. So that is our double feature. At the end of which, initially as a joke, but no longer a joke, Doug and I will now commence reviewing every single Star Trek film of the original crew and Generations. So that's going to be a lot of hours.
In pairs?
I don't quite know how I'm going to put this together yet. I just know we're doing every film. The joke started out as Star Trek 5, and I said, well, I could review every Star Trek film because I like one and nobody likes one. He said, well, I like one, so we should review one. And then I said, well, let's just review them all then. And he said, okay. And they said, but we have to include Generations.
You should review them in pairs. And the reason I say that is because one versus Wrath and Khan are so different. That's an interesting kind of thing, right? Whereas
and 5 and 6
2 and 3 are very linked. Three and 4 are very linked to each other.
That's true.
So that kind of makes sense. And then after that, they all kind of work, like they kind of compare and contrast. So I do in pairs. Plus, I mean, it's going to take long enough as it is.
True.
Share your pain with me and gain strength from the share.
That will be me editing because that's going to be a lot of editing. So
yeah, it is.
Yeah.
Well, I have a show for you to check out.
Sure.
That I checked out because I you know when you're looking for a new show to watch, my wife and I are pretty specific about the Venn diagram shows we watch. And I say that because it's the Venn diagram of what she likes and what I like. Because otherwise, there's a lot of weird shit that I would watch that she's like, nope. And I think she would go drier without me. But either way, so we're trying to find this narrow thing, and we've been having trouble lately because, the True Detective shows are so like, especially right now. I don't need something that's like so depressing. And oddly, I find.
Sorry. I just thought of this. Sorry, I got my dates wrong. It will be out Monday, so it'll be after the show. I just thought about it. I'm like, wait a minute. Why would I promo something that was already out? It's coming out Monday. Because I'm just sitting here going, I just said it was out, but what would the point be of promoting it after it's out? So that is coming up. So set aside 4 hours on Monday.
There you go. So yeah.
I do always put a break, by the way, so people can watch it in parts. That's why there's always that goofy intermission. That's why. If you're watching the single thing, it might not make sense. But I do that so people know that they could stop and then pick it up later. So that's the point of the intermission. I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead. So I've been trying to watch Breaking Bad because everyone goes on about what a genius show it is. And I just find it so depressing. It really is one of the most depressing shows I have watched in a long time. It's and I know everyone's like, oh, it's a tragedy. It's and it is a tragedy watching someone just their whole life fall apart. It's terrible. And it's hard to want to spend time there mentally right now. So I found out that there was this show called The Diplomat on Netflix that I'd never heard of. And its second season just came out. And I paid attention at first because Rufus Sewell is in it, right? Who I always like, Rufus Sewell. And he always shows up in kind of... it's weird, the stuff he shows up in. He's either always like the bad guy or it's a movie like Dark City. Which is a shame because he's a really good actor. And like, I feel like... he
shows up in The Holiday, which is a romantic comedy, as the kind of heel...
Oh, he's the asshole.
Interest.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, of Cameron Diaz.
Yeah.
No, Kate Winslet. No, Kate Winslet.
There you go. Yeah, there you go. So it's a weird... So I like it when I read a good review of him. They said he's very good, and there's 2 seasons of the show. And I'm like, oh, there's already 2 seasons.
Is he a good guy in it?
He is. Well, he is. Okay, he's kind of a rogue. I'll get there.
But he's not a bad guy.
He's not a bad guy. No. The second season's out, and the second season has a good review. The first season has a good review. They're both on Netflix. And I was like, and this wasn't enough yet, because the lead is Kerry Russell, and I've never had an interest in Kerry Russell, like as an actress. Like, she's just kind of this actress who's out there, but I've never seen anything of her and been like, oh, it was really good. And a lot of people liked her in The Americans, which is like a Russian spy show, and I was like, I'm kind of okay.
No, I mean, I didn't. Her name is not enough to get me to something,
but
The Americans was good enough that I will watch something with her.
Then I read something that made me go, oh, wait a minute. So the showrunner is one of the writers from West Wing. And I read that, and I was like, okay, that was what I needed to give this show 5 minutes. Because I really liked West Wing, and when I finished West Wing, my wife and I were sitting around, and I said, hey, what else can we watch that's kind of like West Wing? And there's kind of nothing, right? So I was like, shit, I'll check this out. And the scenario for this show, to give you just the idea of what it is that you've got Kerry Russell is a Middle East expert. And she has been working in the Middle East in various diplomatic positions trying to help things. She's a lot of focus on helping for women's rights and things like that. But she is used to being in a rough environment, right? And she's supposed to be going to Afghanistan, I think. And her husband and her, Rufus Sewell is her husband, are in the midst of a very, I want to call it a congenial divorce. Because you don't really realize they're divorced at first, just that they're kind of like they're going in different directions. Because in the first episode, he's talking about being posted someplace else for diplomatic duties, and apparently he's been doing this for longer. And he's more clever. He's respected, but also kind of disliked as a diplomat because he's a bit of a rogue and does his own thing, even though he gets good results. Whereas Kerry Russell's character is much more by the book, but hard hitting. And she's also, she's so used to being in a military setting that she doesn't have nice clothes. Honestly, Carrie Russell's character is the intelligence expert from like the second half of West Wing. Remember the blonde that ends up with what's her name? She becomes basically their intelligence person through like
Mary McCormick. Yeah, I liked her.
Mary McCormick, yes. So Carrie Russell is playing a very Mary McCormick character in this. In fact, I could very easily see this as an extension of that character because she doesn't really have any nice clothes. She's used to being in more wartime-stricken areas. At one point, she shows up in this black suit, and the British, they have like a whole kind of, many offices around them because this is the British diplomat. They say, hey, do you want to switch into something else? And she's like, I have another black suit, if that's what you're talking about. And they're like, oh, okay, you don't have any dresses? And she was like, not really. So she's expecting to go to the Middle East, and she suddenly gets shifted by the president to go to England and be the diplomat because what appears to be an Iranian ship has just bombed a British aircraft carrier. And the British are ready to go to war. And so the Americans go, send her there because she knows the Middle East and she might be able to, de-escalate the situation. Stop them from just, running into a wartime situation. And what happens then is it's very funny because she's good at the military stuff. She's great with all that, but she's not good at any of the elements of being a diplomat, like a formal diplomat, like the dresses and the meetings and things like that. And the problem is that her husband is really good at it, but he's too good at it. And he's like kind of sly and clever. And so he's trying to help her, but his helping her is almost forcing other people's hands. Like he's engineering meetings to happen on her behalf that she doesn't want to have. Like at one point, the Secretary of State is supposed to call the Prime Minister, but the Secretary of State's dragging his feet. So her husband figures out a way to engineer a meeting between her and the Prime Minister. So suddenly she's meeting the Prime Minister before the Secretary of State is called, and it's causing kind of mayhem. And the Secretary of State kind of wants her out already. And what you discover is that there has been some kind of problem with the Vice President, and they are trying to figure out who they want to put in that position. And the President's Chief of Staff has tapped Carrie Russell. She doesn't know. Apparently, Rufus Sewell knows, her husband. And they are basically hoping that by putting her in England, she can fix the situation there, and that hopefully being there will make her more vice presidential material. As in, she'll look like a vice president. So there's a lot going on, and it feels a lot like West Wing, except it's taking place in England. So I'm enjoying it. I mean, I'm 2 episodes in. I actually find Carrie Russell to be quite entertaining as this character. Rufus Sewell is a delight to watch because he's not a bad guy. He's a good guy, and he loves his wife. But he is this roguish, manipulator, right? And he plays it really well. And you've also got a whole office of people. So you've got that whole West Wing setup where it's essentially you've got a whole bunch of different people going in different directions. And they kept the lights on this time, which is really nice. My wife actually commented on that. Remember West Wing, they were always in like these dark, dramatic rooms, and you're always kind of like, somebody turn on a light. The lights are all on, right. Nice and bright. And it's enjoyable. I'm 2 episodes in. It's kind of fun. I know they got 2 seasons, and there is a strong West Wing vibe to it. It's not perfect. There's no Martin Sheen here, right? Actually, the president. Oh God, who's the blonde guy from Spinal Tap? Famous
Kevin
comedian.
McKeon.
Kevin McKeon is the president.
Yeah. Oh, that's hilarious. that's a stroke of brilliance right there.
And he's playing it serious, but there's kind of this like wry humor to him.
No, he can play serious. It's people don't really understand that, but he can do serious very well.
Yeah, when he came out as the president, I was like, whoa! And then the way he's playing it, I'm like, oh yeah, that's good. I was like, I'm enjoying this. So Yeah, I wouldn't even have bothered if I hadn't read that it was one of the writers of West Wing, and Rufus Sewell's there. But honestly, I've shown up now, and I may just watch this all the way through. It nails that kind of Venn diagram spot for me between my wife and I, and it's got it's neat because you still are dealing with some level of American politics, but it's shifted over, so it's mostly dealing with international politics. There's a lot of Middle East, there's a lot of English and politics, and it's an interesting ride so far. I figured I'd throw it in your direction in case you get bored one night.
Oh, I do like Rufus Sewell.
I know. Well, that's the thing.
Like
you like Rufus
I
Sewell.
always enjoy him in things, so.
And you like, and he is good in this. In fact, I think the moment in the show that made me really like him was that, so his wife has to go to a function to put a wreath down for these soldiers that died in this aircraft carrier terrorism. And when she's there with her security detail and her I guess it's her chief of staff, or it's the guy who runs the diplomat house where she is. So she's the diplomat, but she's got someone beneath her. And so he's there with her, and they're talking, and she sees her husband, who's not supposed to be there, from like across the quad and all these people, and he's talking to a British official that the diplomat's office does not want her mixing with. And he calls her across the crowd on his cell phone. He's like, "Hey, I've just met this person, and she's very interesting, and I think you should talk to her." And meanwhile, Kerry Russell's, right-handed man is going, "You can't be seen with this woman. You cannot be seen with him. Tell him to stop." And she's like basically saying to him, he's like, "You should stay where you are." And he's like, No, come on over. We'll have a talk. And her right-hand man basically pulls a security break where basically they say, "The diplomat is in danger. We have to get out of her now." And the security detail just yanks her out of there before her husband can get to her. And I was like, okay, that's clever. I like that. I like that you've got all these different forces that are quietly working against each other. So it's enjoyable. It's enjoyable in kind of like, when you watch these shows and you look and you think, man, I never would have watched this show when I was in my 20s. Do you know what I mean?
Oh, sure. Yeah.
Yeah. This is one of those shows, I feel like I'm old enough to enjoy it. And the thing is, the relationship between Kerry Russell and Rufus Sewell is really well done. Where like you find out that they're in the midst of having a divorce, but you can tell that she still admires him and digs him, and he still admires her. And there's this great sequence where they've just landed and she has to go to a meeting, and she walks up to him and she sticks her armpit in his face, and she goes, "How bad is it?" And he's like, "Oh yeah, it's pretty bad." And I'm like, yes, they got the sort of marriage familiarity out of them. So you do get the sense that these are people who've been together for years, who know each other. Like
No,
there's
just
no
enhanced friends.
Yeah, exactly. So it's well done. The writing is good. I don't think that the review lied. So I'll see where this goes. But I was looking for a West Wing like show, and this is kind of like a diplomatic West Wing to some extent. And honestly, if Mary McCormick showed up as this character, it would be a perfect fit. Like she is kind of playing that type of character, and I really liked Mary McCormick in West Wing as the intelligence expert. So that's it's not. I guess it's not really a review. I'm only 2 episodes in, but I'm bringing it to the attention of the class.
Well, this is interesting.
Yeah.
I did a search for it to get a link for it, and one of the news articles came up. Netflix users are grumbling about The Diplomat but for a positive reason. And the secondary subtitle is, "Fortunately, streaming service has good news for fans of, quote, the new West Wing," end quote. So there you go.
Oh, wow. So when I read it, the only line in the article was basically the fact that the writer was one of the writers of West Wing, and that's the only thing they mentioned it. So that must be the angle they're going for now.
Well, apparently, the second season is better. And so everybody's upset because there's less episodes. There's only 6 instead of 13.
Oh, wow.
But they did say they filmed the third season back to back. So I wonder if it'll end after season 3.
Well, you know what? I'm fine with a show that tells a story.
I'm fine with that too. I'd rather they end it than cancel it.
Because I was telling you that there's a show I started watching. We kind of started watching as a lark, which is Jonathan Creek, which is a British comedic detective show about a investigative journalist and a guy who basically his job is creating. What?
Yeah, this is clearly the West Wing season 2 because Allison Janney's on it.
She does show up. I know that. Yeah.
I'm seeing names that appear. Yes, this is clearly somebody who's like, hey, you want to come back and do something similar to what you did before? Yeah.
Good.
A lot of these. I'm looking for Mary McCormick.
This can be my safety show, my comfort watch.
No Mary McCormick in season 2 anyway. Sorry.
Oh, you never know. There's my season 3.
Season
But yeah,
3.
watching that Jonathan Creek show, the main detective character is a guy who makes the magical tricks for magicians. So he's like the guy who figures these things out, and the whole idea is that he figures out these crimes from the idea of what if it was a trick? What if it was an illusion? How would I do this? And it's interesting. And it starts out really weak, but we were like, we'll give it a few more episodes. And then it got really good. We actually really liked the Jonathan Creek character. But like the show has 3 seasons before the female lead, who's the investigative journalist, leaves. And at first I was really upset about that. But now the way they're writing their relationship is so miserable that I'm like, yeah, I'm ready for her to go. Because they have this... You know what I say when I say they have a very French relationship.
Yes.
Yes.
I understand what that is.
Yeah, they like each other, but they hate each other. They care for each other, but they fight like hell. They're mean to each other.
It's a very Sam and Diane relationship. That's the American version.
No, it's worse. She gets shrill at him.
No, I understand. But what I'm saying is, for anybody who doesn't know what that means, the American equivalent would be Sam and Diane.
And the thing is, like, they're kind of half together, so sometimes they're not together, and sometimes they are together, and they're both always kind of looking for somebody else, but they always end up together because they are both interested in this kind of weird crime shit. And she's writing, and the thing is, it's very Sherlock Holmes and Watson because she's writing a book about these cases, that she's done, and he keeps popping up in them. So he keeps coming up. At one point, her publisher says to her, they give her this cover for her book, and they have this like, it's like almost like a romance cover, and they have this like big muscular man with like long hair she's like, who the hell is that supposed to be? And they're like, well, that's Jonathan Creek. And she says, that's not what he looks like. And they're like, he's a real person? And they're like so shocked that this character she's talked about is not, they thought he was just a fake creation to kind of liven it up. But they're so shrill towards each other, and like you get sad with them. And at one point, they have a case that deals with a girl that he was madly in love with like a couple years ago. And because he's so kind of emotionally, like he doesn't read people well. The girl that he was in love with had kind of opened the door up for him, and he thought she was just being nice. So he left. And she said, well, clearly, I guess I wasn't his type. And the girl tells the story to the investigative journalist because they're talking about the main guy, Jonathan Creek. And then at the end of the episode, the journalist says to Creek, she's like, I got to tell you something about that girl you were really into. And you're like, oh my God, she's going to tell him? And she's like, she told me in private that you're really not her type. And he was like, yeah, I figured. And I was so bummed for the character, where I was like, oh my God, I was like, I'm so irritated. And it's like, I understand why you did that because you don't want to lose him. But at the same time, you guys act like you hate each other. And it's a difficult relationship to watch. And now that I know she's leaving, I'm like, okay, I don't know where it's going to go, but I'm interested. And I think this is that thing when you play with that Sherlock Holmes Watson relationship. I haven't really seen it done better, at least gender swapping, than was it Elemental? Is it Elemental? Is it the one with
I think it's
Johnny Lee
Elementary.
Miller? Elementary. With Johnny Lee Miller and what's her name? Charlie's Angels. What's her name?
Jeez.
You know what's terrible? She looks like a Japanese porn star that I know, and
No,
I
Lucy Liu.
remember Lucy Liu, and I remembered the Japanese porn star's name first. Lucy Liu. That's terrible. Lucy Liu. Lucy Liu and him have a fantastic relationship in that. It's not romantic. They just have this very good relationship. It's a really well done gender swap. I like the way they play with the idea, right? I think it's a really well done sort of modern take on the Sherlock Holmes serial, right? Whereas in this one, having Sherlock Holmes and Watson in a sordid romantic relationship that doesn't really work is kind of it's kind of irritating. Do you know what I mean? Like the cases are interesting, and how they figure them out is very clever. And when they're in the midst of things, they're quite cool. But the second they have any kind of like momentary pause for them to do a scene that kind of works, that shows them as a relationship, they're awful to each other. You know what I mean? And it's one of those things. It's like when you have those friends who are in really unhappy marriages and you hate going out with them because they're so miserable to each other that you're like, God, I don't want to be around this. So, yeah, she leaves soon. We're midway through season 3, and then we'll see what happens, because that show apparently has 2 more seasons after her that are much shorter as well, just like this, where they went from having like 7 or 8 episodes to having like 5, then there's 4, and then I think one season was just like a special that was like a 2-hour long movie or something like that. But nothing lasts forever as long as you do it right.
True.
So yeah. Good TV is hard. There's so much of it, but finding TV that appeals to your mood, you know what I mean? And because like we have a lot of there's a lot of bummer TV out there right now. It's just kind of a bummer vibe.
Yeah. Well. Yeah. No,
and we've watched a lot of the non-bummer stuff. You know what I mean?
No. Yeah. I'm in the same boat. I'm kind of. I don't need things that are Pollyanna, but I also, at the end of needing anything miserable, I just don't.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So it's hard to find something that threads the needle between that, where it's like, okay, no, there are serious bits, but it doesn't become overwrought either way. Most shows fail
exactly.
too hard one way or the other, for me. Yeah.
So what do you end up watching?
Well, my wife and I basically have we have a set, almost like a playlist that we repeat through, and that's how we avoid it. And once in a while, we'll dip into something, and usually that means I sampled it first to make sure it isn't going to be something miserable. But
got it.
West Wing's one because it we know it ends happily enough. We watched it. So that's one that's fun to go back to. We're watching Schitt's Creek again now because that one has serious moments, but we know it ends well. It's just one of those things, not saccharine, but
yeah.
I know some people have a problem with the way Parks and Rec's ended. They think it's too sentimental. I don't. I disagree with that. I think it's optimistic, which I guess for some people equals saccharine. Oh well. 30 Rock's in there because that one is just very funny and different. What else? Let's see. The Good Place, my wife likes better than me. I like it, but that one starts to get a little much for me at times, where it's like, okay. But I'll take that over a lot of other things. What's the other? What We Do in the Shadows, which is hysterical.
Yes, I mean that honestly, that is one of those light shows. I can't watch that back to back, but it's nice to have it there in kind of the circulation. So when you're kind of like, oh God, you're like, oh no, here come the vampires. We're good.
Right. It's a nice kind of reliever. Becker's in there. Frasier's in there.
Yeah, that's the thing. You figured it out by watching and rewatching shows over like a long time span.
Yeah, and then occasionally, like when Sandman came out, I watched that first episode myself. And I'm like, okay, this is high quality, so we'll watch this because I know what this is. Yeah. Having not seen it, I knew what it was.
Well, Good Omens. Good Omens was like that till they canceled this shit.
Yeah, well, I mean, I'm hoping that the final movie is at least good. That'll give you something.
Yeah.
So
there's I found a movie for you that I don't know if I'd never heard of it. So I don't know if you heard of it.
Yeah.
But it's a post-apocalyptic sort of atomic fear movie.
Sure.
Have you ever heard of a movie called Threads?
Oh God, yes, I've seen Threads.
Okay.
Don't watch it. Don't watch it.
I wasn't going to.
No. Threads and The Day After are... How do I explain what these movies are?
They popped. I was trying to find natural disaster movies for my kids, and somebody was like, "Well, just don't watch Threads." And I was like, "What the fuck is Threads?" And I went and I looked.
Yeah. No,
and I went and looked it up, and I was like, "Holy shit, this sounds depressing as hell."
Yes. And then there's one more too that it's something about the beach, but I don't remember what it's like.
I think I saw something about that. Yeah.
Yeah, so I watched all these a long time ago when I really was heavy into my nuclear obsession, which I still am, but I've realized where the limits are.
Well, okay, was it The Day After, and I think When the Wind Blows? Is that what it is?
Is that the one that ends on the beach? Hold on, it could be. I can't remember. I haven't seen it in so long. Let me take a look. Is that When the Wind Blows? Oh, no. I've seen that as well, but the one I'm talking about isn't animated. But yes, it's the... Yes, I've seen When the Wind Blows as well. That one... Okay. All right, there's a couple of discussions to have.
Well, let's talk about Threads.
There's two differences, so it's important to explain this. When the Wind Blows is kind of like Grave of the Fireflies, right?
Oh, God.
Now, which I would, again, say if you're not in the mood for something very... Or Watership Down. Like, just don't watch these movies if you are not ready for a lot of heavyweight stuff. But animation still has a limit for me. Even though it is every bit as powerful, I can still kind of disconnect it. Because especially with something like When the Wind Blows, they don't look photorealistic. They look cartoony. Okay. So the misery is there, but there's a disconnect because it doesn't look. It's not like, like a Scanner Darkly. You know what I mean? Where it's rotoscoped.
Yeah.
If When the Wind Blows was that, it would be a lot harder to watch. Like Grave of the Fireflies gets close because they're humanoid. But, and plus that one's in the past, so I can do emotional separation for a lot of this stuff. Now, Threads is a very realistic depiction of what would happen, or what would have happened at the time anyway. I don't know there would be some differences now. If there was a nuclear attack, and it's just everybody turns into monsters because everybody's going to die. And all you just see is everybody getting more desperate, more miserable, turning on each other. And you see all the worst of humanity because the worst of humanity in terms of a weapon was unleashed. Therefore, it just ripples down. And so it is one of the most harrowingly depressive things you could watch, where it doesn't even have, for all of Chernobyl's misery, boy, this is a hell of a comparison. For all of Chernobyl's misery, it does have optimism in its ending.
Well,
like
I will say this:
where you find out that the woman survived and she had a child. Like I was crying because it was a relief.
Seen of it. There seems to be a level of dignity against darkness about that movie.
Oh no. Okay, no. That gets eroded by the end.
No. As in, they're fighting it, even though they know they're doomed.
Well,
do you know what I mean?
Well, for a while, and then they just give up and they just turn into their base instincts because they literally have no choice. So, yeah, the ending is just misery. That's all it is. So, okay. Okay.
This is a difficult movie for you.
All right, I'm going to give you the ending of Threads. Okay.
All right.
So you follow a number of different characters. Okay. But then when you get to the very end, the daughter of one of the characters, who was a teenager at the time, it's like some years later, I want to say it's like 5 years later, you start to see that some things are coming back because they've re-achieved like steam power. So they figured out they could generate electricity through steam. So they start getting some form of electricity back, but I mean, still everyone is in misery. So the daughter is with these two boys. They're stealing food. They get caught. One of the two young boys is killed. The then Jane and the other boy end up fighting over food at one point, the food that they stole. And essentially, as I remember it, she doesn't get raped, but she barters sex for some food and then is impregnated. and is in this hospital that they've kind of put together, gives birth. The baby is born, but you can't really tell what shape it's in because you never see it. You don't hear anything. The sheet that they give it to her in is completely covered in blood. And when the daughter looks at the baby, has this horrified look, and then it just ends. So you really don't know.
Wow, what a way to leave it with you there, huh?
See what I'm saying? It's yeah. So yes, are they trying to survive? Yes, but I don't.
It's not going well.
Survival. Yeah, it's like, okay, what is this? And yeah, no. I mean, I guess there's dignity in it, but I don't think
listen. Oh, when
when
I said dignity, I was talking about Chernobyl.
Oh, no. Okay, compared to Threads, Chernobyl is a much happier film.
Yeah, I mean, like, they know they're gonna die, but it's like when when Skarsgård basically realizes he needs to do the right thing.
Oh no,
because there's no point that
No. That's why I'm saying comparatively.
No, I was talking about. I haven't seen
Chernobyl.
Threads. I was talking about Chernobyl because I've seen parts of that.
Well, and also the thing with Chernobyl is that it wasn't a nuclear attack, so it's limited. It's self-contained. So there was the apparatus around them to be able to survive, except the people who were exposed. So yes, sorry, I mixed that up because I was going to say Threads is all destroyed. No, Chernobyl. That's what I'm saying ends in many ways optimistically, somewhat, in that like there's this mother. Who was told she would never have children, she was going to die. Well, she doesn't die, and she's able to give birth to a perfectly healthy child. So there are positives that come out of it because they were able to, as you say, persevere, and there were people who realized, okay, we're doomed, so all we can do is try to stop this from happening, right? We have to bring attention to this. Yeah, comparatively, Chernobyl is a much happier tale.
Which says a lot right there.
Yes, which says a ton. That's what I'm saying. Threads is a endurance test of misery.
Oh,
and but I would argue should be shown to every single person who's alive to get you an idea of what a nuclear weapon dropping, a nuclear war, what it would do, because it is fairly accurate, in my opinion, what would happen. Even today, there would be changes, but what a true nuclear war would result in, I think Threads represents fairly well.
Is it a full war? Like, does the world get... I know that a bomb drops near Sheffield, but is it a full-out world war at that point?
I'm trying to remember if it was... I seem to remember that it was a nuclear war where... Let me see... let's see. International crisis. Soviet Union invades Iran in response to an American-backed coup in the country. Situation escalates. The Soviets launch a nuclear strike. Milton attacks NATO. Then economic and industrial centers attack, injures, and kills tens of millions. So it looks like what they do is they basically completely annihilate all the NATO countries. So I don't remember in the movie if there's ever any information on whether anybody struck back. Mm-hmm. I don't think, because everything's knocked out, I don't think anybody ever knows. I don't think they ever get into that. I think this is the idea of, well, if one of the countries really launched a full-out strike.
Yeah, this is the ground level. Like, this is what you deal with, yeah.
Correct. Yeah, because I don't think... Yeah, and I'm not seeing anything that references it in the summaries or anything like that. No, I don't remember them ever saying what happened. You just know that world events are escalating, and then the Russians basically just decide to bomb every NATO country. That's the way they make it sound, is that they just launched against everyone. Now, you would assume that they probably were retaliated against. So was it the whole world or not? Does it really matter if it's the country that you're in and it's just layered with bombs? Probably not.
Yeah.
So...
Well, yeah, that sounds, wonderfully depressing.
Oh, it's fucking awful. But like I said, this is a period where I was just consuming everything, and and even that I was like, oh wow, this is.
I know, even in the height of that period of your life, the fact that you have that reaction to it says a lot.
Yeah, this is one of a handful of movies that even at the time I was like, ooh, this is heavy. Like this, Slow.
So, out of curiosity, do you remember what you had to watch afterwards to get it out of your head?
What did I? Oh, that's a good question. What did I watch after Threads? I think at that time, I probably watched either Akira or Ghost in the Shell. I went to one of my kind of palate cleansers where I'm just like, okay, yeah, whatever, you know.
I need a breath mint for my brain.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
Yeah, Threads was, and the stupid part about watching Threads is I watched it kind of late at night alone.
That's the worst too.
Boy,
when you do that.
Yeah. I mean, the only thing that would probably make it worse was had I watched it when it originally came on, when a nuclear war was still a possibility. That I can't even imagine.
Oh, during the Cold War?
Yeah, and that's when it aired. And I think that was the intent, was to scare
Apparently
people into realizing what this
never
means.
been aired on TV again.
No, because it is horror. I mean, because it isn't playing around. It is showing you how far people will go. They don't spare anything. And I think because people will get the sense innately that this is not really fiction. This could easily, it wouldn't take that many bombs to do this. It would take maybe 2. Especially because what we tend to forget is that the bombs dropped in Japan were relatively low power compared to what
today, yeah.
Well, forget even today, but even in the 80s, they had improved, and now would have been striking with precision in the places where they knew it would have the most effect. Whereas the bombs in Japan, I think the first one, they weren't even sure if it was going to work really. They didn't know what it was going to do, and it just happened to work worse, more effectively than I think they imagined.
They were pretty sure it was going to work.
Well, but
today we have we have bombs that are 50, 100 times more powerful.
That's what I'm saying, is now you can do so much more with one bomb.
Yeah.
So at the time when there was still the idea that Russia was, well, I mean, don't get me wrong, they're steering that way again, but that was at the probably roughly the height of the Cold War, where there was still a very real possibility that if one or two wrong steps were made, and of course at that time you were hearing about the doomsday systems where if something got disrupted, it would just launch missiles. So you put all this stuff together, and to see this just on TV without really understanding what it was going to be and watching it and being like, wow. So, and that ending, that's what I'm saying. It didn't end with like a birth of a child and the child was completely healthy and cried.
It's not like Children of Men where you get to the end and you're like, oh, the baby's alive. There's a baby.
No, this is more like It's Alive.
Yeah, I know. Oh man, speaking of which, it's a meme going around where it's the cast of The Thing but done up as Muppets.
Oh, I seen this. Yeah, I saw this.
You know what I realized in that moment?
Yeah.
I would watch that movie.
Oh,
I would watch Muppet Horror. Could you imagine that? Muppet Horror. I don't want CG.
The thing is, you start imagining kind of all the ropey kind of blood as yarn and fabric.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. But like you can make it all horrible.
Well, yeah, and then because you imagine the dog creature and they make a song, it's like I'm a thing, I'm a thing, I'm a thing, I'm a thing.
Jesus.
Anywhere,
you know
anywhere,
what? You just made it so much worse. I wasn't even thinking musical. You just took it there.
Oh, I instantly thought that.
Now it's a horror musical. Oh.
Oh yeah,
God, that's fantastic.
I could think of at least 3 musical numbers. One, I'm a thing, I'm a thing, I'm a thing, and you could do that one kind of throughout every time there was a creature. Nobody trusts anybody. Like I could almost see that where they're just dancing around like I don't trust him, he doesn't trust me. Don't trust him.
Yeah, but right around the time they're doing the blood test, right?
Yes, exactly. Yeah, it would be all of them dancing around with their blood. And like he's trying to poke he'd be trying to put the dish. He's like, nope, not me. I'm not it. Nope, not me. And they're like dancing around him, and he keeps having to heat the wire and trying to dip it, and then it gets cold, and it's just the whole thing where they're going around the room, and there's endless potential in an inverted Muppet film where it's all horror.
Yeah.
Sure, why not?
I think they should make. You know how they make like porn versions of popular movies.
They should make Muppet versions of popular
I think they should make Muppet horror versions of popular movies.
I'd be all for it. Why not?
Oh man, if I had the capabilities, the funding, the know-how, I think I would do that. That would be so much fun.
The Muppets in the Mouth of Madness.
Oh my God, that'd be perfect.
Gonzo is playing the Sam Neill character.
No. I don't even need to use the Muppet characters themselves. Just the Muppet format.
Oh no, I know, but I'm just saying.
Yeah, it doesn't need to be Miss Piggy.
Except,
you know what I mean?
Okay, except that you know that.
Oh, you know what? Actually, sorry, I just forgot this. My wife actually had the best comparison for the Jonathan Creek the relationship. Jonathan Creek is Kermit the Frog, and the reporter is Miss Piggy.
Oh, okay,
in live action.
Sure.
That kind of miserable Miss Piggy relationship.
If they did In the Mouth of Madness, they would have to use Sam Eagle as Charlton Heston, though. That would be the perfect casting. I need you to go find Sutter Kane. Go find Sutter Kane. Like, I could see that, and he looks like him. Like, that is, Sam Eagle is essentially Charlton Heston. So, they could use that one, and then all the rest of them could be original. But
I just think that would be so much fun to watch, you know.
And I'd get the original actors to voice the Muppets.
Well, the funny thing is, actually, you could just use the dialogue from the original movie. Wouldn't it be funny? Oh,
well, not if you're doing musical numbers.
Hold on. But listen to this as an art project. Take a movie that isn't horror. Take the dialogue from the original movie. Remake the movie so that it's kind of close, but that it becomes a horror, somehow using the same dialogue. I wonder if you could do that.
Wait, explain the parameters again?
Okay, so take a movie that isn't really a horror, right? But is questionable. And then take all the dialogue from the movie, right? And remake it.
People do
with
this all
Muppets.
the time. They recut trailers.
But then kind of make it so that with the different visuals, you can make it a horror movie.
Oh yeah,
so you can make lines more sinister and Yes, they do. That's very funny. Yeah.
Yeah.
It'd be funny. But yes, I would love to watch.
The Muppets thing would be great.
It would be good. It'd be a lot of fun.
Because there is a lot of visual inventiveness in taking those special effects and making them
Muppet like light and fluffy. Yeah, and you're sitting there going, I know this is just yarn, but it's so frightening.
Right. Yeah.
You know.
Yeah. And it can, and we know they can do that because the Dark Crystal is at times horrific.
Yeah, and those Skeksis are
That's
I mean, shit, listen, Farscape.
When the Emperor crumbles, that is not a fun scene. That is a horrific scene where he's like, like that's terrible.
Well, Farscape did a lot of this, where they took all the Jim Henson stuff and they made these horrible space creatures.
Oh yeah, no, absolutely.
You know, I mean, like, what is it? The bad guys, not the. Oh god, there's the peacekeepers on one side, and the other guys, the big dragon-looking people who can't.
Yeah, I can never remember their names.
Yeah, Scorpius. Scorpius is like half Scarron. The Scarrons.
I keep thinking
the Scarrons.
I'm like, no, it's not the Peacekeepers.
Yeah, the Scarrons are basically like, you know, big dragon people in suits.
Right.
You know? But it's that kind of thing. They are making the special effects scary. You know what I mean? They're adding that to it.
Well, I mean, and they have been involved in the Jim Henson Company has made, like you said, characters like the witches. They did the effects for that, and there's some horrific imagery in the witches. Mirror Mask, they were involved in that, in the effects. That's got very terrifying bits. So they certainly aren't strangers to it. They have done.
No, I know. Stuff. But you can do a lot of stuff with it. I mean, honestly, the thing that sucks is having all the CG come in. You lose some of that corporeal sort of the meatiness of the practical effects. It's funny because, so I recently was getting tattooed. I had a tattoo marathon with my friend up in Vermont, and we watched, what was it? We watched Die Hard, we watched Lethal Weapon, we watched Under Siege, and then we closed with Total Recall. And it was a long time to get tattooed. And I was explaining to my friend how Total Recall is one of the last big blockbuster movies that didn't have CG. That it's all practical in that movie. And the thing about it is that you watch that movie now, and like the only things that kind of throw me off in that movie is the 2 weeks thing when he takes the head off. That's very obviously claymation, right?
2 weeks.
Yeah, 2 weeks.
And when his eyes poke out of his head, you know, he's going,
oh, yeah, when he pulls the thing. Yeah, there's stuff. But the thing is, like, because it's all physical, because it's not bad CG, there is actually, like whenever they try doing the weird claymation, it does look weird, but there is kind of a weird internal logic to the movie of it. So Total Recall should be so dated at this point. and yet it still looks so good. And like I was saying to my friend how we make fun of Arnold in that movie because when he starts choking and he's like, and you're like, oh god. But the thing is, as much as we make fun of Arnold in that movie, we fucking love Arnold in those movies.
Oh no!
You know what I mean? Like,
even that effect is still terrible because you can imagine your eyes.
Oh, the eyes
out.
Bulging out of the head. Yeah.
I mean, yeah, because it is real. Because you sense that it is it's not a real.
It's not CG. It's some kind of physical thing.
What would happen if my eyes expanded in my face? Yeah.
And that movie still looks good. It's still worth. Honestly, for me, the main thing that threw me off, that felt weird, was the when he pulls the head off, where it's like, I think it's like a claymation him and a claymation like that. When he pulls the mask off is the one scene that feels really weird. But then the rest of the movie, but then the rest of the movie, it's like the models are fun. The face things is weird. The woman's got 3 boobs.
Quado too. If you look at Quado's human host in some of the scenes, it's not good. Quado looks
fat. It's fat rubber. You know what I mean? Like
yeah, but they did not capture the actor's
likeness. Oh, and I'll tell you what's weird.
Well.
Was it the guy with half a face from Total Recall? Is the DEA guy from Breaking Bad? Breaking Bad. I was just talking about that.
Yes. Yeah. I know who you mean.
It's so strange to see him there. You know what I mean? But
the guy who gets shot in the head.
No, he gets shot in the chest.
Oh, is it the chest? Why do I always think he gets shot?
Yeah, he gets shot in the chest because he lives. Because later on he's like,
oh, that's right, he survived.
Out of
I was going to say, because I always thought it was weird.
Yeah.
He got shot in the head and survived. It was the chest and survived. That's
right. Chest, he gets shot. Yeah. So
Shoddy
it's just funny. It's funny how that works. That there are these movies that use practical effects, and because they were practical effects, it's almost like World of Warcraft. Rather than trying to make things look realistic, they created their own cartoon style.
Yeah, they're deformed. They would call it deformed style or whatever.
Yeah, and because it has its own internal style, it doesn't look as dated as it could because it looks like itself. And I think that's the thing you sometimes get with practical effects is that because it doesn't look like bad CG looks fake. But you can have really good practical effects in a movie that doesn't even fucking deserve it. You know what I mean? And be like, wow, you know what? That monster looks really good because somebody sculpted that. What was the movie you were talking about recently with the? Oh God, what was it? That was like a really low budget movie with the son from Hildebrandt. I think it was Hildebrandt's son, the artist.
Oh, Deadly Swarm.
Where the effects were actually
Spawn, one or the other.
Were actually way better than you thought they would be. Even though the rest of the movie was kind of like dirt poor. It still looked good. They had someone artistic working on those special effects to the ability.
It is the Deadly Spawn. So if people look for it, not Swarm, Deadly Spawn.
Yeah. You were impressed by the special effects.
If you don't even watch the movie, just go find the behind the scenes stuff just to see how they did it. It's great.
Yeah, and that it's so funny how they go for the practical effects now. I mean, for the special effects because it's cheaper, right? But like bad CG looks more fake, no matter what. Practical always looks, there's just something corporeal about it. When an actor can actually get their hands on it. I mean, what I love about Lord of the Rings, the movies, is that there's a lot of CG in those movies, right? But Jackson kind of knew where to make it corporeal. There's a lot of weird sets they built. There's a lot of weird accessories they built. There's a lot of scenes that you think are CG, and they're really just like camera trickery, like all the forced perspective shit they did. And you get the sense that people are still interacting with real objects. By the time you get to Hobbit, there's a lot less of that. And then by the time you get to Rings of Power, shit's all CG. Everything's CG. I was trying to explain to my son how, like, they go to a city and there's all this city. And I'm like, how much do you think this is real? And he's like, oh, the buildings and this and that. And I'm like, none of it. It's like the road that they're walking on is the only thing that's real here. Like they're walking into buildings and the buildings aren't there. And you're like, oh, Jesus
Wrong,
Christ.
Sir. Wrong.
Barely anything.
Yeah, exactly. So that's why.
Well,
it's so
that started.
expensive.
I think that where people really became aware of that was back in I remember that they released behind the scenes stuff for Boardwalk Empire, and people were amazed.
Oh, that blew my mind. Yeah, how much of the city wasn't there?
Yeah,
which makes sense. I mean, but at least in that, they used it to enhance a period show, but the settings that they were in we're not like it's a lot of offices and casinos. There are sets, you know what I mean?
Oh,
and they're using the bones.
They're expanding it out. That's what.
Yeah, exactly. Like it makes more sense to me. Whereas the Rings of
embellishment, not invention.
Yeah, Rings of Power is a lot of embellishment. I mean, like when they get to the Dwarven City and you see that, and you're like, yeah, almost none of this is real, guys. This is almost completely,
Well, that's the Phantom Menace thing. When you see the fact that they're just standing in a giant green room, with boxes, it's like that. Oh, all right.
That's why when they did that, there's that the bomber show that they did. Was it Masters of the Air?
Oh, Lords of the Sky or whatever.
No, I think it's these are Masters of the Air. Yeah, but it's the Tom Hanks Spielberg bombers show they did. Mm-hmm. One of the things they really did was when they were filming it, they built these full size bombers that they then put on gimbals and basically like moved them around inside of one of those like green screen spaces. Right? So it's like, yeah, the sky is all green screen. All the shit going around them is green screen. But they actually, like, shook these assholes up in the plane and, like, moved the plane around. And, like, they actually gave them somewhat of a realistic experience to some degree. Like, there is a plane there. They are interacting with it. They didn't just make a full CG plane around them. You know what I mean? I mean, they enhance it with CG elements. But there is a plane there. You know? I wonder if... I never looked this up, but did they ever build the ship for Mandalorian, or is that all CG?
I want to say they did build at least part of it.
Hold on,
but I don't know for sure.
Well, they fucking blew it up. Yeah.
I feel like they did at one point build at least part of it, but I don't know.
Well, the internal sets are going to be sets.
Of course.
Yeah. Did they ever build it? No, fuck you. I don't mean him. I don't mean him build a ship. Did they build it for the show? Yeah. I really don't like this AI overview thing they have.
Oh, I saw that, yeah.
I still can't get it to give me the right answer.
You can't find out, huh?
No.
What's the name of the ship?
It's called the Razor Crest. It makes sense that they built like a shell of it probably, and then they had internal sets, right? That makes sense. I always wondered if they built a model that you could like walk into, like a functional model, not a functional, but like a full set model that you can actually like move through on a basic level.
Well, they did build a model, but not a full size one. So far, what I'm seeing. Hold on. Did they ever build that? I guess that's the thing. Did they build a full size one? Because they said they did build a model for filming. Let's see, the Razor Crest. Let's tell you, did they ever build a real one? How the Razor Crest came to life. Yes. Was it? Okay. Well, okay. That's the filming one. I see that one. Okay. That's the smaller one, but it is physical. So there's that.
I mean, a fan built one.
Well, we're talking about, okay, hold on. I have to wait. Because so far they're focusing very much on how they did the small scale. So this is the small model, which is very nice. They built one. Okay, come on. This is one of these where you have to click every single friggin' thing to see what they're talking about.
Oh, I hate those.
Hold on, I'm only on step 4. Hold on, number 3. Yeah, I know. This is the stuff I do for you, everybody. I can tell this is not going to give me an answer.
It's not going to give me an answer. You know that. They're just drawing you along for advertising.
And number 1 is garbage. Nope.
Okay, there you go. Told you. They probably built a shell, and then they built sets so they could film, so you could pull it away. I just wondered if they ever built, But why would they? There's no point to them building one like that. It wouldn't be easy to film in that. They probably just had like a ramp and like a little bit of the bottom so they could then CG the rest on.
Probably.
But I always like the idea if they built ships, like
I don't know. Is there one in the Galaxy's Edge thing? Did they make one for the Disney?
I don't know. I know attraction? That so you might know this. So in the original New Hope, right?
Yeah.
They built the outside of the Millennium Falcon, right?
Yeah, the bottom where the legs are, because you could see them. They're running into it, so they built that.
Yeah.
And it goes up to I think like the cockpit-ish area.
Okay, so I always wondered about that, how they built the sets for that.
Yeah, well, yeah. If you look, there's pictures of it. So basically,
have you seen the meme where a stormtrooper gets his eyes checked, and they realize that he had like a stigmat, that he has the stigmatism, and then the rest of it is him shooting everybody dead. He's like, "Hey, Skywalker!" Boom, and he shoots him, and then he
Right.
just basically systematically takes everybody out because he can actually shoot
Yes.
straight. It's very funny.
Yeah.
So.
Yes, I have
Well,
seen that.
I actually had nothing to bring to
good.
the show today. I kind of just shot from the hip here with things that came to mind. So I think that's all I have of all the stuff I didn't have. But, you know,
trying
like
to
I like to say, I think we're most dangerous when we don't actually have topics.
Well, that's very true. That's very true.
So.
I'm trying to see if they ever built more than Millennium Falcon in that one part that I know of. It doesn't. They did all. I mean, a lot of interiors. I
mean,
think,
I'd be honest with you. The one thing that would make me want to go to Disney is I do have a very mild interest in seeing that ship. Seeing the.
Well,
you know,
I will tell you, I did a. There is going to be a late night that will be out.
Yeah.
Where I talked to somebody who just loves amusement parks. And has been to a ton and went to that and said it was great. So, they did build. They built much more than I thought. I found a picture.
Oh, did they?
From the original movie, and they built. I'll send you this picture. Actually, I'll link. Hold on. Can I exit the goddamn picture, please? Hello. There we go. I'll link this to you, and I will also put it in the show notes if people are curious. Because there is a picture of them walking around that's the cockpit.
Oh,
so
wow,
I
look at
think
that
that's
thing.
what I was talking about. Except I don't remember the top being there.
Yeah, they built the outside of it. Look at that.
Yeah, they built a good portion of the outside.
Man, I wonder how hard that was to move.
Well, it's probably. I mean, it's only for that thing is probably nothing inside. That's probably just foam and wood.
Yeah, I know, but it still doesn't look easy to move.
Well, no, but it probably sections off and just wheels. I mean, don't get me wrong. I'm sure it wasn't as
and
simple.
they built.
Carry it by hand.
Yeah, and then they built the cockpit and things like that.
Yeah, everything on the interior
Now,
is completely different.
I have been somewhat lured by my inner child to see Galaxy's Edge, but I just know that it's highway robbery to go. Especially now that they have like those new tickets where like, hey, if you spend a ton of money, you can skip everybody online. And I'm like, oh wow, isn't that just the most classist thing? Okay, thank you.
Yeah, no, he agreed that that's something they should just get rid of. That's really bad. But
I mean, how do those people not just stab you as you tra-la-la past them?
Well, that's the trick, right? This is gonna. I'll say.
I mean,
this.
listen, if a culture war ever happens, it'll start at Disney.
I agree. But I would say one of the things that you would probably get more out of it than yourself is probably your children's reaction to it. That would probably make it worth it.
Yes and no. My son will love it. My daughter will roll her eyes.
Oh, well, in that case.
Because you know what? Listen, we just watched Fifth Element, right? I finally said, fuck it. You know what? I'm not going to shy away from sexy stuff. Let them just experience it for what it is. I didn't explain the space shuttle scene at all to them. I let them figure it out for themselves. And my son thought that it was absolutely hilarious, right?
Yeah.
My daughter rolled her eyes so hard she almost fell off the couch.
Yeah.
And they were like, what the hell is this? And I was like, this is what happens when French people make science fiction movies. But the difference is I adore that movie. And they were like like my daughter was really unimpressed. My son thought Valerian. I know, right? Well, that's the next level. My son was like, he liked the space stuff. He liked the ships and things like that. And you know what? Actually, it's very funny. I was keeping track of the naked women that I think my son has actually seen in cinema, right?
Yeah.
And his first naked woman or partially naked woman was the wife in Abyss.
Oh.
And his second one is Mila in Fifth Element.
Which is barely anything.
Which is barely, I know, but listen, at that age,
scenes.
I'm sure it's something.
Oh, listen, it's still something for me at my age, whatever.
Yeah. But it's just funny because like I'm trying to think back what the first movie I as a boy was that I saw a naked woman in that I was like, whoa. And I can't remember.
Jeez.
Like what my first encounter with like cinematic sexuality was.
I can't remember.
Neither can
I really am struggling to think if I could even remember because no, I can't remember. I mean,
is there nudity in Commando? There's no nudity in Commando.
I don't think so.
Now, see, like some of the earliest movies I remember are like Commando. Big
That's the thing, guys.
China,
I can't even tell you what some of my earliest memories of movies are. I don't even know.
War Games. Like, I'm trying to think of like the movies that I cognitively
games.
remember. Eliminators.
You know what? Okay, wait a minute. Hold on. I think. All right. I don't think there's nudity in it, but I do remember watching Cocoon with my parents, and there's some kind of sex scene in it.
Oh, in the pool.
I remember
where she shoots the light out and it hits Gutenberg with the light, and he's like, "Whoa,
yeah." And I remember my mom was like, "Uh-oh," like had this look on her face, like they didn't realize what was in it.
We're gonna have to explain something here. Yeah, I'm trying to think about that. Yeah. Like, what?
Because I would have only been 7 when I saw that movie, or 8.
Jesus, you saw Cocoon at 7?
Well, it was released in '85, so I want to say that I was probably 8 because it was probably the year after. That's when stuff came out on the movie channels. Your
dad was a cowboy.
No, I don't think they knew what was in it. That's what I'm saying. I don't think they were aware.
Yeah, they were ready for that. I hate that in movies where you have something happen. This is why I always vet them, because I don't want a scene to pop up where somebody because I mean, because in Fifth Element, he's performing cunnilingus on that woman, but you don't see anything. It's all comedic, but and you don't see it. But if you know, you know.
It's right on the line. It's right on the line because it's so over the top that it does.
And that's the other thing.
Deflate anything of it, but
once Ruby shows up in that movie, they didn't know what the hell. And the thing is, they just watched Rush Hour, so they really like Chris Tucker.
Oh well, that's a positive.
So when Chris Tucker shows up in that outfit, they're like, "What?" And the thing is, like, he's wearing those outfits so confidently.
I think the funny part is I remember watching Terminator 2 with my dad.
Yeah.
In the theaters. That was 91, so I would have been 13. But it's all male nudity. It's the Terminators who are nude. So they don't care. It's, I don't think that even registers.
I don't even know, like, when, because there's a lot of 80s movies, and I'm trying to think. I don't. It just didn't register. Weird.
Yeah, I mean, I remember movies I rented that had nudity in them that my parents weren't aware of, like Chopping Mall, stuff like that, where they thought it was just they didn't. Again, this is kind of
you know what? Wouldn't it be horrible?
Puritanical irony. They didn't care about it being a horror movie, but they'd known about the boobs.
Wouldn't it be horrible if it was like a horror movie, like your first encounter to nudity was in like a horror movie of some kind?
Well, it probably was because my parents didn't care about horror movies.
Yeah.
They didn't know. I don't think. See, we think of it now because it's 2020 hindsight.
Yeah.
But I don't think that most people, because my parents were not into horror movies.
I'll tell you. You know what? I'll tell you one thing I remember. Right. I remember being young and seeing Alien on my own. Right. I wasn't supposed to be seeing it. And the scene where she gets out of her. She puts the spacesuit on.
She gets into the spacesuit. Of course,
she gets in that. Yeah, I know. But as a kid seeing that, I was just like.
But there's no nudity in that.
No, I know, but that's what I mean. There's no nudity, and yet, as a young boy watching that movie, I was like, "Oh my god!"
Oh no,
awesome.
Yeah, no, it's great. Yeah. No, it's great. Yeah. But in terms of actual like pointless nudity, which that is not. That is just wonderful nudity, or semi-nudity.
It's not even nudity. That's the thing.
It's just a wonderful thing to behold. We'll just leave it at that. But because my parents had a complete blind spot to horror movies and thought they were just people getting hacked up, and that was okay.
They were like, which you can watch gore. We don't care.
They never looked. They never bothered when I asked to rent things, so they didn't realize that horror movies were largely being held together by people being hacked up and nudity.
And nudity, yeah.
Yeah, because there was no story most of the time. Chopping Mall is a horrible movie story-wise. It makes no fucking sense at all. But you don't care because...
Well, listen, half of the Friday the 13th movies are, hey, let's go over to this dark corner and have sex.
Yeah.
There's a knife through my cleavage,
Yeah, exactly. Right.
Yeah. That's funny.
That's what I'm saying. So I'm sure I did see it, but I don't really remember it because all those movies kind of blur together for me.
I noticed my son experiencing these things for the first time. And I sit there and I go, shit, what did I do? Like, and the thing is, like, I'm paying attention. My parents weren't paying. I mean, your parents weren't paying attention. And it's funny because, like, I don't know what it is. I don't know what it was. And I wonder I worry that it was something really bad. Like there was some horrible 70s movie that I saw that I was like, oh my God, what's going on? And the thing is also, there's the first time you notice, and then there's the first time I think that you realize what's going on.
You react to it.
Yeah, so it's like, for example, they may watch Fifth Element again sometime in the future and be like, oh God, Ruby's doing what? Oh, Jesus Christ. Yeah, exactly. And that happens.
Right.
Where later on you watch the movie again and you're like, oh, shit, this just got weird. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because there's a lot of movies like that.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think now of one that happened to me.
Well, okay, I'll give you an example.
You know what? Risky Business.
I remember.
I think I watched Risky Business way too young, and there was a lot of Rebecca De Mornay in that.
Remember Top Secret with Val Kilmer? Okay.
Yeah.
I saw that movie very young because it's zany. I didn't know what was going on with the cow and the people in the cow.
Oh, yeah.
So when he was walking funny, as a young kid, I didn't know
You were
what
like,
that
that's
was.
funny. I don't know what's going on.
I was like, why is he walking funny? Like, I didn't know what was happening there. Now I'm like, got it. Yes.
Yeah.
But no,
it's kind of like
that movie
when
was out in
you,
'84, so I probably saw it a year later.
When you're a kid and you learn Greek mythology, and they're like, "Oh, the Minotaur. The Minotaur is what happens when you mix a human and a cow together."
You don't think about what that means.
And you're like, "Oh, okay." And then later on, you read the actual myth, and you're like, "Yes." So King Midas's wife put herself into a giant wooden cow suit to lure the bull in to have sex with her, and you're like, "Oh,
yeah,
okay." And like it's like once you know, and then you're like, "Oh God."
Well, and I didn't catch what was going on in Airplane when she's inflating the autopilot.
Oh, yeah, you just thought it was funny that she was inflating the guy,
yeah. Yeah, I just thought that the autopilot was smiling.
She's blowing the pilot up, yep.
Right, yeah, I don't know what that is.
That's a good example, because you're right. You watch that movie when you're younger, and you don't have no idea about what's going on there.
No, you don't necessarily catch that.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. Well, anyway. What have you got for me, Mr. Wizard?
Well, the only thing, I have no clips because it's all subtitled, so no clips. So this will be a probably shorter review. But I finally got around to finishing the Adult Swim adaptation of Uzumaki, the 4-part
the Spirals?
animated. Yeah, Spiral. And so,
speaking of depressing.
Yeah, it really is. Yeah, it's not Threads. Because it is self-contained.
Wow, okay.
Yeah.
Oh, because it's just a city.
It's not like that. Yeah, it's only this town. So
but you can't get. But the thing is, you can't get away from it, though, right?
No, but just don't go there. It's very simple. Just don't go there. If you never go there, you won't have a problem. But yes, once you're in, you don't get out. That's correct. But essentially, there's the original comics. Then there was the live-action adaptation, which cut things. It had to. So it doesn't have everything that was in the comic. Whereas this has, as far as I can tell, everything from the comic and follows it all the way through to the ending, almost, if not beat for beat, so close that you really wouldn't notice anything was missing. And the thing that happened was the first episode had come out and was free for everybody to watch. And it was stellar in terms of its quality. And then when the second episode came out, people noticed that the quality had dipped. Now, I didn't see the second episode as soon as it came out, so all I was reading were all these people were like, "What the hell happened? What?" Like people just losing their minds.
This shit is shit.
Right.
Yeah.
And so I was like, "Oh boy, it must be pretty bad." So then I watched the second episode and I went, "Okay, yeah, it's a little rougher, but this is not bad. Have you people not watched American animation lately? This isn't bad. This is still better than 90% of what I see. This is not terrible animation." Yes, it definitely felt like it took... And what happened was something happened. There was a whole story where the lead of animation or the production designer said, yeah, we got screwed by somebody working with us. And we could either have pulled the plug on the whole thing or we had to finish it as we had it. And we decided it was better to release it in this state than not release it at all.
So
which I agree with.
Is all the rest of the show rough like that?
Well, it's... Okay, when I say rough, because the rest of the episodes are the same... 5 minutes into the second episode, after you realize it's not going to be a Titanic off the cliff level of drop, you don't even notice it anymore. Okay. So yes, but who cares? Because
it all looks like that.
That's what I'm saying. And if you've only watched typical, let's put it this way: it's still so far above G.I. Joe from when I was a kid, or even the Transformers from when I was a kid. Like, you want to talk about bad animation? If you haven't gone back and rewatched that stuff that you remember it as a kid, go rewatch it. It's junk. I mean, it's
not great. Yeah, I love the amount of assets they reuse.
Oh, it is comical how bad the animation for those shows was. So that's what I'm saying is I can compare things with the proper perspective, and apparently a lot of people on the internet, big shock, can't. So oh my God, it's so much worse. No, it's not. Did it go down? Yes.
They definitely. You turn around and go, you people are fucking spoiled. I used to have to get anime on VHS from across seas to watch it.
Right, yeah. I mean, if you're going to compare it to fucking Ghost in the Shell, okay, yeah, you're right. It's not Ghost in the Shell, or even like standalone comp. Although, you know what?
Honestly, does it being rough make it any like less horrible to take because it is a horror comic?
That's what I'm saying.
It's still terrible. You still feel terrible watching it.
No, it still manages to capture the art style, the feeling. It's all in black and white, which is great. So they don't have to worry about the color stuff. All that's out. It still has that weird, unsettling tone that the comic had. It is perfectly fine. Yes, if you watch the first one and go straight into the second one, you're going to notice that it looks different. But it's not as if it suddenly becomes stick figure fucking theater. It's not like that. It's just, you remember that some standalone Complex episodes were way better than others. There were standalone Complex episodes where Monaco's eyes were almost on top of each other. And you sit there and go, whoa, wait a minute. She didn't look like this an episode ago. This happens. And
listen. Yeah, the animation in standalone Complex is not great.
It varies. Some episodes are very good.
Where it is, there are times where it is very rough, and there are times where obviously no one felt like drying clothes on Motoko.
Yeah.
Like there are scenes in there where it's very serious, and she walks in the room, and you're like, okay.
Okay.
Somebody was having
a Faye Valentine cosplay on the cheap. I see.
Yeah, somebody's having a lazy hard-on day, and they're just like, yeah, you know what? She can look like.
It's sort of funny that her hips and her tits are very well drawn, but her face is a fucking mess. Okay, got it. You know,
where there's no features. There's the kind of like the hint of eyes and some of it a mouth.
Right.
And you know what? I say that standing by the fact that Standalone Complex is still a fucking awesome show.
That is why I'm making the comparison.
But there are times where Bato becomes an emoji of himself, isn't it?
Yes.
Where it's just the black eyes and the straight line.
Yeah, parts of one of his best episodes, which is Jungle Cruise, the one where he's got the serial killer. Remember that served with him, the guy who's letting people see themselves as he peels the skin. Some of that episode is extremely hard to look at. Very hard to look at. Not because of the horror, but because the animation is way off. So what I'm saying is there's times where the animation is bad and the story is bad. That's kind of a lot of old Transformers. Go back and watch those, and most of them are garbage. They just are. It's garbage. Same thing with G.I. Joe. Same thing with a lot of Thundercats. Like, this is not good animation, and the story doesn't hold up years later. Whereas Uzumaki, the story is still effectively told, and the animation is still way far ahead of much other stuff. Are you going to catch frames here and there where, like, the lines don't complete? Yes. If that's what you're watching for, guess what? You can Neil deGrasse Tyson the shit out of this thing if you're an animation hardcore nitpicker. Congratulations, you have a new thing to get angry and post on Twitter or whatever about.
But you're just encouraging them. You're encouraging them not to make it anymore.
Right. Whereas my thing is, like I said, it fades away so quickly because you're used to it now, and it isn't that big a step down. And the story is still very unsettling and almost comedic in its unsettlingness at times. There is this weird thing that a lot of Ito's work does where these characters see something that would make a lot of people go straight into a mental institution.
Run.
And the next
would
day
make anybody
they go back
else
to
run
school.
for their life.
Well, no, and they do. They scream and they run, and then it cuts to the next day and they're in school. And everybody's just there. And then a person who's become a slug goes up the side of the building, and everybody screams and runs out of the room, and the next day they're taking a test. And it's like, okay, this is unreality. Which is
hey
great
guys,
because
I saw something kind of weird yesterday, but I still had to take my test today. And you're like, no. Like, think about that. Think about something from an anime like this, that if you saw in real life, you would get up and just move. Just leave.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
You know, like
no, when the one guy's father has somebody build a spiral box for him that he then kills himself by twisting himself into, I'm moving out of town. That is a bad sign, man. That's just not good.
That's the whole like like the haunted house thing where like weird shit starts happening and they're like, oh, what are we gonna do about our house? I'm like, dude, you say it's haunted and you put it up for sale. People will buy it.
Right. That's right. And
in fact, I debated telling people my house in Vermont was haunted just to up the sale.
Oh, sure.
Because someone would be like, oh, I hear this one comes with ghosts. That's a bonus.
Listen, the first time I wake up and there's a headless 14-year-old girl who says that my spirit can't rest, I'm going to say I'm very sorry, and I'm going to start packing suitcases. She can watch. Well, I say, yeah, maybe the next people can help you.
Unless they're horny ghosts. That's my only line on the sand. Unless
they
they're
better have their
ghosts.
heads attached.
You know what?
Standards.
If a headless ghost showed up and was like, I want action, I'd be like, you know what? You seem kind of harmless. Maybe we can figure something out.
No, you and I have different priorities. I need.
She's
to see
got a
some
really good personality, man.
Yeah, no, I need more than a pulsating neck hole to indicate that these things are going well. I need a little.
Well, that's not what I was particularly going to use. But if that's the kind of person you are, that was always the weird thing in the Witching Hour, where she was having the relationship with Lasher, but he was invisible. So you're kind of like, okay, you're having sex with an invisible force. That's fascinating.
I mean, I guess if you're selfish enough, that works.
I don't think you can pleasure an invisible force.
No, but as long as you're getting something out of it, is what I'm saying.
Well, yes.
If you're in a one-sided relationship and your side is the one that's succeeding,
I know, but if the worst of your haunting is that the headless ghost wants to pleasure you, right? In like not a horrible way. There are worse ways to get haunted.
I don't disagree, but what I'm going to do is when that ghost appears, I'm going to say, I have a friend who lives in New Jersey. Let me give you his address. Go. You'll have a great time.
Hey, man.
I'm not into it.
I have a ghost. I need you to help.
I'll say, how long does it take to get there by the by the spiritual switchboard? Give me an idea. 1 day, 2 days, I'll let him know you're on your way, and I'll give him a heads up, and then I'll let you know. And then you can reenact the scene from Ghostbusters where Dan Aykroyd's pants come off.
Is having relations with a phantasm grounds for divorce, you think?
Ooh, that's a good question. I mean, I think that's... I think... Well, let's put it like this. Were the situation to arise...
Yes.
And it was one where there was a head involved, which would be my baseline, then I would have to say, well, I do have to have a discussion.
Out of curiosity, if there was no body, just a floating head, is that still a deal breaker for you?
I think I have to know what the parameters of the afterwards situation
You need the whole body.
Well, no. Forget the body. Okay, let's just assume let's assume corporeal or intangible compatibility. Whatever.
Okay.
Let's say that we're going to get past that barrier, right?
Oh, intangible compatibility. I love it. Go on.
Okay, what's the post-coupling situation that we're looking at? Are you now moving in? Are you going to be a permanent resident here, or what?
It goes away.
That you need one last ride? Oh, they're going to go away?
No, it goes away. And it comes and goes as it pleases.
I don't know. I'd have to run up by my wife and see if that's all right. Because I mean, if we're sitting there watching the West Wing, and the thing shows up and says, "Hey, it's action time."
It's time for sex.
Yeah.
But here's the thing. No. Let's say you're in a situation where it's a poltergeist, but as long as you occasionally have sex with it, it won't destroy the house. It won't haunt you. Just occasionally needs play.
Okay. All right. See, now in that scenario, whoever it would be, my wife or I, we would be like, okay, go ahead, and we're selling the house. So we'll I don't want to have a situation where.
And do you post that? Do you write? I'm sorry, there's a sexual poltergeist in this house. We have to.
No, I would. Because that house would sell in a day. Because a single man who doesn't want to worry about somebody who's smothering them, this is your scenario. Right? If you have commitment issues, and literally the listing is, poltergeist just wants to have sex and vanish and not talk afterwards, I will be drowning in money.
Oh my God. It'd be the ultimate kind of otaku relationship, wouldn't it?
That's what I'm saying. That's the ideal poltergeist for me. Because I will sell this house and I will make 10 times what was paid. At least.
Yeah.
And I'll even and to the point where, if they don't believe it, I'll be like, you are free to stay a night, and I will direct them to your room.
Yeah.
And you will see. This you can have a trial run.
Man. You know what? Now I want to write a comedic short story about a couple with a sexual phantasm that needs to sell the house.
Let me tell you something. I would love to be a realtor for these types of houses. The commissions would be outstanding.
So you say, is there one phantasm? What kind of sexual acts are they into? I need to write this for the listing.
No, I would like to be Harry D'Amour style, have the phantasm start contacting me saying, we need to find a house where we can just have sex with the owner and then vanish. And then I can put that ad in. I'll be a ethereal pimp. I'm fine with this.
An ethereal
It's not illegal.
pimp.
Yeah.
No, I mean, there's a lot of people who don't believe in ghosts.
Yeah.
Can't be illegal if it doesn't
I'll
exist.
be the ecto-tinder. I'll be ecto-tinder.
Ecto-tinder.
Whatever.
I think that's your show title right there.
Phantasmagrindr. Whatever. It doesn't matter.
Oh, I don't know which of those I like more. They're both so good.
Yeah.
Phantasmagrindr. Oh, Ectogrinder. Yeah. It's so good.
No,
They're
it was
both so good.
Ecto-tinder or it was
Ecto-tinder. There you
Phantasmagrindr.
go. Oh, I think of those two. Phantasmagrindr just has a nice,
Yeah, it rolls off a little bit, doesn't it?
But I mean, you gotta have to have an open mind for this kind of thing. I mean, you yourself are saying that you're not really a fan of the whole headless thing. Where I'm sure there's many people that are like,
I'm not a fan of it if it's haunting me, but if one appeared and said I need assistance in this, I will help. I will gladly become. That's what I'm saying. The Phantasmagrindr
I can't do this
thing.
for you, but I will definitely find someone.
Right. Yeah, I would have no problem hooking these ghosts up with somebody who needs them. There are people who literally just want the physical satisfaction and don't want an actual relationship. They don't want somebody in their house. They don't want to have something ongoing. They don't want commitment. Fine.
Oh, you know what?
Here.
I'm not trying to further derail you. Have you read anything about this movie, The Substance, with Demi Moore?
Yes, I've read the whole thing. I've seen multiple reviews of it. Yeah.
I saw a one of these little short films where somebody kind of explains the whole movie to you. It's kind of the way you review to me, but except with visuals.
Yeah.
It's interesting. It's kind of weird, different.
It's interesting. It sounds like it's got a huge plot hole that I don't know that I'll be able to get past.
Well, I mean, listen, we were just talking about how horror movies are nudity and murder. You know what I mean?
Well, they are, but I mean, not to spoil it for anybody. But here, I'll do this as vaguely as possible.
Jesus Christ, what podcast do you think you're on?
No, I know.
This is
right.
like
so when the second one of her comes out, why would Demi Moore do it? Because she's not living through the other creature. Like, her brain isn't there. It's a separate entity that exists separate from her. So what's the point? Like, if somebody said to me, "Oh, we can have you take this stuff," and a younger
and that was the thing.
Comes out of your back.
I didn't understand if her consciousness transferred.
From everything I have read, I'm going to reread it right now, and the one review said the same thing. Why? Let's see.
Because if her consciousness is not transferring, then why would you do it?
Yeah, here it is. Generates a younger version of herself, Sue. The two bodies must switch consciousness every 7 days, with the inactive body remaining unconscious and fed intravenously. But they're two different people. Yeah, because...
But that's what I mean. Like, is the consciousness transferring over?
No. Yeah, because it says, despite their shared consciousness, but I believe what they mean by that is that they know what each other did, Elizabeth and Sue begin to despise each other. So...
Well, listen, unless it's a metaphor for basically physical beauty making you despise yourself.
Well, it is, except that in that case, what it should have been was... I mean, unless... But based on everything that I've read about it and everything that, as far as the reviews, they've all made this point of, well, wait a minute, there's two separate people, so why would you do this?
Yeah, unless the idea is that she didn't know what it was going to do to her, because she doesn't seem to know what it's going to do to her.
Yeah.
And then now that she has this thing, she doesn't know how to get rid of it.
If you had to what I thought initially before I started reading about it and seeing these things was I thought that it was that you only got the 7 days as the young person and then you were back to being old. And so, yes, that would be a horror in that I would say that then your age would be even worse because you become a perfect young version that's perfectly healthy. And now you
definitely know what you're missing. Yeah, yeah.
Right. And so I could see that type of interesting movie. But based on the way I've read it and the reviews that I've seen, and the way they talk about it,
I thought that their consciousness traveled back and forth.
Yeah, because the other thing is, why would they have 2 different names? If you're the same person, why would your name change? It would.
I thought she changed the name so people didn't, because how could they be the same person? I guess is what it is. She needed to create a fake identity for the new version of herself. Either way, yes, the fact that they aren't the same, that it isn't just the same consciousness. I did not realize that. It seemed to me like they would be the same person.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know.
Well,
yeah, here's
you know what?
The younger version stockpiles stabilizer fluid and refuses to switch back. Well, if it's the same person, why would you switch back? Why is there a deal where each has to do it?
Why is that a bad thing? Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Is it doesn't? And I get people say, "Oh, now." Believe me, I have said myself, you're reading too much into it. But this is one of these things where it's like, well, this is the central conceit of the movie. It doesn't make any sense. So maybe it is supposed to be that you're not supposed to think about it too hard, but I don't know. That's kind of the primary plot point, isn't it?
But again, if it's a horror movie, then it's plot holes and horror connected by nudity.
Well, yes.
And
I mean, at the end where she's being
movie.
decapitated and an arm is coming out of her neck hole and dancing around on stage and like vomiting blood everywhere. I think at that point you don't care about the metaphor anymore. So
well, the body. Yeah, honestly, and that part gets very sort of what's it called? Very Cronenberg.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. So I mean, I will probably watch it at some point just because I'm curious, but I'm not in a rush to. Let's put it that way.
I that the young actress. That's Malcolm McDowell's daughter.
Andy McDowell's not Malcolm McDowell.
Sorry, McDowell. Andy McDowell. Sorry, yeah, there you go. And I think when
growing up, she was in Death Stranding.
Yeah, and growing. Oh, was she? I didn't know that.
Yeah, she is Mother. She's the one in Death Stranding. She is a woman whose child died in childbirth, and the ghost stays with her as a fetus.
Oh,
it's quite sad, really.
She gets some weird roles, man. She also did that weird Kenzo commercial.
Yeah.
And that with Spike Jonze. Spike Jonze.
I believe it was Spike Jonze. Yes.
Yeah. So and she's a looker. I mean, I really liked Andy McDowell growing up. I mean, she is the soft on the eyes part of Groundhog Day. Anyway, you were reviewing a show, and I completely derailed you.
Well, it isn't. There's not. It's a weird thing to review because it's a very faithful adaptation. As far as I can tell, every major plot point, the progression, it's all the same. But I think it's a really excellent animated version of Uzumaki. So, sometime I'm not going to say it's going to be better than the comic. Nothing's going to be better than the comic, but a lot of times when they do adaptations, it tends to be something like Ghost in the Shell, where it could be a stellar adaptation, but it's also very different from the comic. Like you can tell that they took certain parts, and that's fine. And they've done other animated adaptations of Ito's stuff that were very mixed bags. I tend to be a little more favorable on them than a lot of people are, but I will admit that they are in many cases compromised. This one feels like the best adaptation of it outside of the comic. So I think it's better than the live action one because it does keep all the core elements of the comic, including the ending, which is a very, it's not a happy ending. It is a kind of doomed ending. Even where the main characters die saying, well, hopefully nobody else experiences this. And then they basically repeat the cycle with 2 new characters in the same exact situation in the movie. And then the animated thing ends, which is exactly what happens. But it retains all of the weird, almost humorous horror stuff, but it also does get extremely pure body horror, like when the pregnant women are drilling people and drinking their blood like human mosquitoes, which is very, very creepy. And the Lovecraftian elements are all there, where they descend underneath the town and all the weird kind of ancient architecture is there that's just kind of self-sustaining. And, but it also can be very funny, which is odd to say but it does have those elements of very, very dark humor to it. So I think it manages to capture the tone correctly, which is, I think, the tricky bit with his stuff. Because it will either get too silly, which I think some of the other animated adaptations tend to make the mistake of. They take I don't want to say goofy. They take the more gonzo elements and they go too humorous with it, where it defangs any of the horror and creepiness. Or they go just pure horror, which does work for some stories, but also in some stories now they go too far the other way. This one manages to kind of keep it both ways until you get to really the final 10 to 15 minutes where it is just pure doom. But even then, there is this weird, I don't know if optimism is the right word, but the two characters who are the main characters, which is Shuichi and Kiri, I'm probably mispronouncing those. They're basically boyfriend-girlfriend through the whole thing, and they protect each other the whole time, and they basically accept that they're not going to make it out. And so they embrace, and they kind of twist into one being, but they're together, and they've just accepted that they can't get out. And so they die in each other's arms. It's not a miserable death. It is the best possible way to die.
Well, to be with the people that you love in your final hours.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And not, screaming in misery and regret. They've just kind of accepted it. It's like, okay, well, at least we're together. So if this is how it has to be, it's how it has to be. So like I said, the quality dip didn't do anything to me. I stopped noticing it very quickly. Also, I don't think it's as much as people will make it out to be. I think all that uproar over it was a bunch of nothing. So once you watch it, like I said, it took me about 5 minutes to forget that there was even a quality dip.
Yeah.
So maybe watch the first episode, then wait a week and watch the rest, I guess.
Give yourself a chance to forget the graphics. Yeah.
I guess. Although honestly, when I rewatched it, I just went right through with it from 1 to 2. So I saw that there was some things that were a little bit less in detail, but then, like I said, I forgot about it.
Be happy it exists.
Yeah, I think this is, outside of the comic, this is the best adaptation of any of his stuff.
Hey, listen,
it got all the tone
Ghost
right.
In the Shell with Ghost in the Shell with Scarlett Johansson. She's not Motoko. I don't understand why they chose that, but they did it because if she wasn't there, they wouldn't have gotten the funding. And so I understand that they needed her for the funding, and that movie is fucking amazing to look at, and I'm grateful that we have that version of it.
Yeah.
Do I want more?
Actually,
sure.
You know what?
I'm not going to get it.
It's a very fair comparison because Uzumaki, the live action, is the live action Ghost in the Shell.
Yeah.
Now that there is the animated version is better, but without it, it was a perfectly serviceable adaptation of the material with problems, but still a gorgeous.
Yeah.
The Uzumaki live action is a really interesting movie visually. I like it. But is it as good as the animated one that I just watched in terms of really capturing the story? No, it's not. It's a compromised adaptation. Whereas the animated one is the pure adaptation. So, but some people don't like animation. My wife will never watch the Ghost in the Shell anime. She will not. She just does not watch animation.
Neither will
but I could get her.
No.
Right, but I could get if I thought she would enjoy it. I just don't think she would. She would watch the Scarlett Johansson one because it's live action, even though it's basically the same thing.
Yeah, that was on my short list of movies to show my kids. I was gonna either because that's PG-13 as well. I was gonna show them that or Fifth Element. I went Fifth Element because I wanted to show them like a light, fluffy, colorful vision of the future.
Yes, the
not such a grim and dark version.
A little dour. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Also,
it's good to kind of, build some hope up.
Plus, you might inevitably get the question is, wait a minute, so she used to be Japanese? Yes. Let me explain to you.
You know what? They won't have a problem with that. That
Really?
won't occur to them. No, that won't occur to them till they get older, and they're like, wait a minute, like whitewashing. That doesn't occur to you till you get older.
Oh, good. Then they show it to them now, where they can just enjoy
Yeah.
it.
Well, listen,
thinking about it too much.
there's a lot of movies like that I watch with them now because I'm like, you'll enjoy this more now because later on you'll look at me and you'll go, why did they do that? And I'll be like, well, the power of myth.
Yeah. The power of misogyny.
Oh, they
Power
know
of
that
Weinstein.
one. They know that one really well.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, so there's a lot of movies like that. But I can't remember how many times I've said on the show that this movie or that movie is clearly a kids movie in disguise because kids will accept those plot holes.
Yeah. Oh, sure.
Like Avatar. I know that we sit there and we say, okay, Avatar is just Dances with Wolves in space. But here's the thing. My kids are never going to watch Dances with Wolves. And by the time they do, they will have long since seen Avatar. Therefore, Avatar is great for them. Geez, I love this Dances with Wolves story. It's so original. It's amazing. Yeah. And that's what happens.
Yeah, sure.
The old is forgotten. Certain people who know it reuse it and process it for the future. The future says it and says, this is so original. It's amazing. And you're like, not really. But yeah, it's still good. Listen, I love Matrix. Matrix is a fucking awesome movie. But I know everywhere where that shit comes from. I know all the things they were pulling on. And those things are also great. You know what I mean? And it's that kind of thing. Anybody who watched Matrix and was like, this is the most original thing I've ever seen. I'm like, it's good, but it's not the most original thing I've ever seen. They just figured out how to process a lot of this more subculture-based animes and actions and martial arts movies in a way that that a more mainstream audience could access. They made the obscure accessible and relatable.
Yeah, I mean, and this is not a criticism. I'm agreeing with you, but there's so little original to that movie. There really isn't that much.
Yeah. So
that I can think of.
It's kind of that thing. It's like the old gets forgotten and then it gets translated. So a lot of people. There's a lot of young people.
That movie is the fact that they believe that Keanu Reeves would be taken seriously in it, and he was. I mean,
listen, you know what? I've always loved Keanu Reeves. I've always loved Keanu Reeves.
I do too, but are you really going to tell me that most people thought that he was going to be a serious dramatic
he's always Point Break. No matter what movie he's in, he's always
Point
Break.
That's what I'm saying.
Even in fucking what do you call it? What's his name? What's the action movies he's doing now?
Oh, John Wick.
John Wick. My brain was like John Carter. No, that's a different movie. No, John Wick. No. Even in John Wick, listen, it's Point Break with better martial arts skills. Like he's
even in the Matrix, he goes, "Whoa!" So I mean, they were acknowledging.
Yeah, and I love Keanu Reeves. He's great.
I know kung fu.
You know what?
They clearly knew.
I hate to admit this, but I'd take Keanu Reeves over many Oscar-winning actors.
Jared Leto.
His movie. God, let's not even get into Jared Leto. Jared Leto is an anchor around the neck of acting. I mean, he's done some good stuff, but lately when Jared Leto pops up in that movie, I just groan. I'm like, oh God, he's in this.
The fact that he's in the third Tron is just so depressing to me.
I know, right? Like you hear that and you're like, oh God, man, okay, here we go.
I mean, they managed to get Bridges to come back and he's going to be settled with Jared fucking Leto. You just sit there and go, oh, fuck, really?
Oh, yeah.
You got
and
Bridges
the funny thing about Jared Leto is he started out as the heartthrob in like a teen girls show.
Oh, he's like a lot of these guys. He just went to Psycho Planet or something. I don't know. He's like that other one who pulled a part of his tooth off or something. What was that guy's name? Oh, LaBeouf. LaBeouf. He's another LaBeouf.
Yeah, LaBeouf. Yeah, Shia LaBeouf.
I mean, don't get me wrong. That guy with that last name was doomed anyway. But
you know what? Well, and listen. You know what? I don't think he was completely awful in Kingdom of the Crystal Skull. I wish they'd done more with the character.
No, not his performances. I'm talking about he went up his own ass. He's one of these guys.
Oh, well, yes. Well, Well, because art does that. Listen, you know that. There's a whole realm of artists who become so enthralled with themselves.
I know.
They can't escape the orbit of their own ego.
There are many, but a lot of them pretend to be not as crazy, I guess.
Like Jared Leto. Jared Leto gets into these roles, and then you're like, dude, you're taking this too seriously. You know what? What's his name? Who's the guy who just method acts everything? He just retired, and then he came back out of retirement recently.
There's a bunch of
he did There Will Be Blood and stuff like that.
Oh, you mean Daniel Day-Lewis?
Yeah, I got to a point with Daniel Day-Lewis where I was like, I just found him insufferable.
Yes.
And I do find, I love Last of the Mohicans. I think Last of the Mohicans is an amazing movie. Yeah. But I think that was early enough in his career that he hadn't gone, just fully off the deep end. Whereas, his later movies, I'm like, dude, I just don't care how dedicated you are to this. Keanu Reeves is barely acting, and I am enjoying what he's up to.
That's the Val Kilmer thing too. Like I like Val Kilmer, but you hear about.
But you don't need to get that crazy, man. It's
Right, yeah. Like you're not Jim Morrison. Come on, give me a break. You're not Jim Morrison. Stop. Stop.
You did sing really well. I'll give you that. I mean,
that's fine. I mean, yes, he looked like it, but you're not.
But
Jim
you're
Morrison.
not Jim Morrison.
Shut up.
No, you're not Jim Morrison. Yeah.
Stop it. Like,
so it's
but
that's the thing. Like I've always thought that acting is tough because you are never being yourself, and I understand why these people can sometimes have difficult lives, because if your job is not being you around the clock, well, when do you work on you?
You know what? I don't know if I actually believe that, because I've enough big name actors have at times said, look guys, this is not hard. What are you talking about? You don't have to go into the emotional depths of the planet.
It's not hard for certain people.
Right.
Listen, there are I'll stick with something I know. Writers. There are writers who bust out incredible shit and it doesn't faze them at all. And there are writers that sweat blood writing fiction that traumatizes them.
Well, you know what? Here's a philosophical question for you.
Yeah.
I think you asked me you asked me a version of this question, but I don't remember what your answer was. You asked me, would you give up years of my life for my art?
Oh, I think said, would you give up like a certain period of life to have a truly like
what did you say as far as a writer?
A profound work of art.
Because I know I said I wouldn't give up much unless I knew it was really going to do something.
I feel like I
good.
already give up years for nothing. So like,
okay, but you know what I mean. So do you feel like trauma is worth
would I shorten
my
lifespan to have like a great work of art?
Yeah. Well, forget even
no, I don't
not
think
even
so.
short life. No, sorry. I should rephrase this. If you were going to become a person toxic to those around you for your work, would you do? Okay.
No,
well,
then
I'm sorry. When somebody
Salinger, that's the Salinger thing.
Yeah,
if you
I
watch
don't think it's worth it.
If you watch the documentary about J.D. Salinger and you basically learn about like his horrible relationship with his wives and his kids and how his kind of whole world went weird, and like he did fall in love with his own mind and his own imagination and his own characters and his own books, and that's the thing that sucks about writing is it is an alienating experience. In fact, a lot of art is an alienating experience.
I think that's the three different type of artists to me, is the ones who don't struggle with their art. There is no trauma. They just have a good time. That's the ideal. You make your art, you're happy. I'm not saying it's a lot of people, but you can.
Well, listen. I like my art.
No.
But sometimes I do go to dark places,
When I make my statement about, the thing, is like Junji Ito's a great example. He's like a fun guy. He's like, oh, this shit's just goofy. I just draw horror stuff. I don't care, man. I love cats. He's like one of those type of people. So yeah, he's drawing like people twisting themselves out of a Jack-in-the-Box as they spew all their guts onto people who are screaming. And he's like, it's funny.
Yeah.
Who cares, right? Then there are the people who struggle with it or have to kind of
it disturbs
have
them.
some kind of they have to tap into something dark, but they know what it is. They can compartmentalize it. They can still be normal people who can have loved ones that don't suffer. You're
talking about Stephen King, right? Reformed Stephen
pretty
King.
much.
Yeah, not early Stephen King. That was all alcohol and drugs.
Early Stephen King was the bad version.
Yeah, late Stephen King.
And then there's the people who will just destroy everything around them for their art. And I think those people should not be doing art. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
It is not worth it to destroy yourself and to alienate and
their
destroy
lives,
everyone
their
around
relationships, their world, everything. Yeah.
Yes. There is no art worth that. Because what's the point?
If art is fundamentally about connection and expression, then why destroy all the connections in your life unless you are so egotistically focused on your expression? And there are people who are.
If the sum total between misery and happiness has tipped into the misery column with your art in any way, I'm sorry, it's not worth doing it. I think that's the thing for me is even the 50-50 line, you're skating, but okay. But if you're getting to a point where any of the misery factor has tipped past the halfway point, I don't think it's worth doing this art. Whether it's to yourself, to others, whatever. Or around you even.
Yeah.
Or you're creating things that make people upset.
I don't think the art should get in the way of your human relationship.
Like I said, it's a fuzzy line. It's not it's not an easy metric. I'm not going to pretend I know what that line is. But that's what I hear about these people
I'll put it like this. I try to have an open door policy with my kids when I'm writing, which is to say, if you need anything, just come in. It doesn't matter. And they'll come in and they'll ask me goofy questions, and I'll be like, "Yeah, that's cool, it's fine." And then I'll struggle to get back to the scene.
If a kid comes in and says, I cut myself pretty badly, and you punch him in the face and say, "I was in the middle of this chapter and I was almost done, you piece of shit."
I was in the middle of a scene.
Then what I'm saying is your book is not fucking worth it.
Well, Salinger used to lock himself in his writing hut for most of the day, show up for meals, and then disappear again. Yeah. Kids never saw him some of the times.
Yeah.
It's like, I don't want to do that.
Is that really worth any great book? I don't think it is.
No, and that's the alienating aspect of art.
Yeah, or if you're an actor who's doing great work, but everybody hates you and you've made the entire film set miserable, is that worth the great performance? I would argue it is not.
Yeah, and that's why when they talk about actors in movies and they're like, hey, they look like they're having fun. Yeah, and the thing is, you notice that because when they're so intense, but it looked miserable. Working with James Cameron, no one has nice things to say about working with James Cameron. They think he's brilliant, but everyone basically says he worked me like a dog. You know what I mean? It's not a relaxed set. He knows what he wants and he pushes people. Kate Winslet was talking about, or Sigourney Weaver, both of them actually were talking about they had to take training on holding their breath and all this weird shit. It's like, yeah, but he makes great movies. I mean, but they don't look like they're having fun on set. Whereas Rufus Sewell in The Diplomat looks like he's having fun. It's very light and airy. He's kind of breezing
David Lynch.
through the...
If you watch the David Lynch stuff, he is very specific about what he wants. He will get intense, but no one says anything bad about him because as soon as that's done with, it's all like, okay, you got it. Let's have a good time now. It doesn't become, he's not punching somebody or whipping somebody and saying you're doing it wrong.
Give me what I want. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, he's saying that, but he's doing it in a way where he immediately makes it very clear. He's like, okay, we just have to, this is important to get right, but I'm not going to make your next 3 weeks of your life where you're crying in your trailer.
Well, this is, what's his name? What's the guy who was on The Shining who drove that?
Kubrick. Yeah.
Yeah, Kubrick. I've read some not amazing things about Kubrick.
No, he's a fucking asshole.
So here you go.
That's what I'm saying. Is
the art worth the asshole? I don't know.
No, I don't think it is. I think there's a point where it's very clear it's not.
I don't want to be an asshole.
Right.
Yeah, I don't want to be an asshole in my art.
So, yeah.
And I don't think that I don't think my wife would stand for that.
Yeah. Yeah.
No, honey, I can't do that for the art.
No.
Yeah. I mean, granted, if you were being paid,
really good.
But if you were being paid millions of dollars, I think it's very easy then to crawl up your own ass.
Oh, of course.
That's the hard part.
That's the perspective distortion.
Yeah, it's absolute power, absolute corruption.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think it's hard to. How you navigate that says a lot about you.
I agree.
And there are people who navigate it, and there are people who don't. That's why when child actors, we're always impressed when they don't come out psychopaths. The fact that Daniel Radcliffe actually seems like a nice person is amazing. He doesn't need to do much to just be a nice person. You're like, wow, he dodged that bullet. Because so many other, you're like, oh, he's a psychopath. Jesus Christ. Shia LaBeouf is a child actor. And, head up ass. And it's that process of being a child and being in that industry just... it just demolishes child psychology. You're being commodified and you're not in control. It doesn't
seem to benefit many.
The parents. It does sometimes benefit the parents.
I should say in terms of a whole and healthy life.
I wonder what Macaulay Culkin's relationship with his parents is.
I don't know.
I don't think it's good.
I don't think so either, but I don't know.
So, anyway.
I know it wasn't. I don't know if it's been repaired since. Let's put it that way.
It's one thing if your child loves acting and wants to act, but yeah. Anyway.
No, there are child actors who survive it, but it's not typical.
No,
it's not. So. Well, as an example, this isn't really a review, but the documentary about the Chucky movies, which is called Doc of Chucky, is excellent if you like any of the Chucky movies. It's 3.5 hours. It's an excellent documentary. And they have the kid who was in the first 2 movies.
Oh, yeah?
And they had a person on the set, because there's a part where he has to cry, and the director's like, you have to cry. This can't be fake. You have to actually be crying. And he was the mother was there, and they also had a professional who was there to make sure if she saw something that she thought could damage that child, she would step in.
Yeah, that's hard. That's hard for
it's
adults.
very hard because they were like, I think they made up something like that. You know, I think the director said, imagine that your parents were in a terrible car wreck and were killed. But they were very clear that it was an imaginary thing, but they were trying to get him to think of it.
They can't just
to make him cry.
They can't just spray his eyes with something.
Well, they tried, and it never looked right, and they finally got to this point. And the mother was okay with it. She was there.
They didn't just pepper spray the kid. Okay, that's
and they went to the mother and they said, "Is the professional went to the mother and said, do you want us to stop this?" And she said, "No. You know, it's okay because I'm here. He knows it's imaginary. You know, he understands what's going on. I don't think this is bad."
And he turned out normal.
He says the best thing in my life is that I was in these movies. Yeah, he's in it. He's in it as an adult. He's like, I'm just sad that they didn't use me again in any of the later movies. I came back for the television series, but I wish I'd been in the movies. So no, he said it was one of the best things because he and the lead actress, the woman from Star Trek 4, whose name I can't remember, the one who's got the whales, was the mother. Like, they had a great relationship, and you know, so no, for him it was a great experience at that time, at that day where he had to cry. I'm sure it wasn't, but it did not destroy him. Yeah, he is, by all accounts, a normal. You know,
it's good when people come out the other end.
That's what I'm saying. So done right, it can be fine. Done incorrectly, it will end up where, you know, drugs, how many of these child actors end up killing themselves? Yeah, exactly. The woman, the girl from
overdoses,
different strokes, you know, that type of shit. Like Linda Blair seems okay, and man, she went through some shit with The Exorcist, which I would argue should never have been allowed, but it happened, and she came out all right. But there's a reason why in the second movie she said, "I'm not getting back in that makeup." She said, "Get somebody the fuck else, and I'll play against them, but I'm not wearing that shit again." So, you know, you do pick up little hints about the stuff.
Why?
No, she said it was too miserable. She said it was too miserable.
Wearing it.
Yeah, just the whole and I have a hunch, if I had to guess, that it was more than just that, because what they did to she at one point, I mean, like the Ellen Birkin, they wrenched her backwards without warning, and they fucked her back up. And that's because they wanted her reaction, the director wanted her reaction to be real. Well, I don't think that's worth it. I'm sorry. I'm okay if I realize
listen, there's movies that cross the line, and you sit there and you go, "Oh, okay, guys, you've crossed the line there." Yeah, what was that one with Brando? Was it The Last Dance Tango in Paris?
Oh,
like that?
Yeah, where he probably
possibly
digitally raped that woman.
With butter, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
like, I'm sorry.
And she knew there was something in the script, but she didn't. They didn't. Yeah.
No, that's
I can't. Yeah. You know how you're talking about movies that when you find things out, you can't watch them anymore.
Burn that fucking movie. I don't care.
I can't watch that movie. I found that out, and I was like, oh God. I was like, that's awful.
I never saw that movie because it never interested me, and I'm glad I never saw it.
I've watched a lot of movies late night. There's just art movies
I think that one was just never on.
No, you know, I kind of like Brando. I had a Brando period where I kind of liked him as an actor, but he's, you know what? He's one of those actors that just went so far off the deep end.
Yeah, well, you know what? The Brando thing is interesting because to me, I always feel like a lot of the stuff I like him in is despite him. It's like,
you hated
like
this
Apocalypse
movie, but I like it.
Like Apocalypse
it's like
Now
Superman.
was. Superman's a good example. Like he seems half asleep, but it's okay.
Yeah.
I don't really care. And then Apocalypse Now, that was supposed to be completely different.
Yeah, they had to change
and
it
because
for him.
He was just too difficult and he was overweight and everything, they shot him in a lot of shadow when they were not intending to. But he was something like 50 or 70 pounds over what he was supposed to be. Yeah. So they didn't want to show him with this big gut, so they had to shoot him. That's why all those headshots are pretty much a lot of shit. Like that, number one, that movie did give Coppola a heart attack. I'm sorry. He had a nervous breakdown. Martin Sheen did have a heart attack. That movie is right there where you're like, was this movie worth it?
Was it worth
it? I don't know. I don't know. That's
it's better to have it's better to have a cameo in that movie than to actually, be.
Yeah, Harrison Ford made out well.
Lawrence Fishburne.
One scene early on. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, well, yeah. I don't know how much Lawrence Fishburne saw as an underage actor, but I'm sure he saw some shit. Dennis Hopper, well, he was on coke the whole time, so what did he know? Who cares? But like I said, Harrison Ford probably did the best of all of them. Shows up for about 10 minutes in the opening, can say I was in one of the greatest war movies ever made, if not the greatest war movie ever made. Thank you very much. I got my paycheck. I left. Went back to carpentry for a while. and did not have horrible scars of being in the jungle with a bunch of people screaming.
No, and what's funny
insane.
is that Harrison Ford now, the what he's become now, would never have stood for that then.
No, well, that's what I'm saying. Is he's one of those guys where when people are like, oh, he's always so grumpy, he never wants to do any press. I'm like, good for him. He understands.
He's probably sitting there going, guys, you don't understand the artifice of this. It's such bullshit.
Yeah, that feels like somebody who came from a film background, who worked in normal jobs, saw normal people, and went, this is all horse shit, guys.
This is what
and
reality looks like.
Really matter.
Yeah.
Yeah. Fucking Star Wars is a pew pew.
I want you to play your sound and then bring the show to a close.
200 hours later.
I really actually didn't think we were going to hit it because I'd ended my Uzumaki review at like 1:40, so I was like, oh yeah, 5 more minutes and we're done.
What did I say
anyway,
to you? When we don't have topics, we're at our most dangerous.
No, you're right, and we really just did wander way off of Uzumaki for sure. But anyway, to get back to it, Uzumaki's really good. I think it was a phenomenal adaptation. The quality dip is not severe enough and does not take away from the fact that it is a stellar version of this story. So for anybody because this is one thing, I've mentioned this, I still have this problem. I know it's more pure. I don't care. Now a lot of comics that are Japanese comics, even when they're in English, are read right to left. I can't do it. I've tried. I can't do it. I have to read left to right. I cannot read the other way. So now that a lot of new versions like that are like that in comics, I'm going to start preferring stuff like this where it still progresses like a movie. Until they start running these backwards as movies, I can watch this. So fortunately, I have a copy of Uzumaki from when it was still left to right, before they started getting too purist, which I will argue. I get it. I know it's the actual way you're supposed to read it.
Yes, but I'm going to make an argument that shifting it the other way is basically a translation.
I agree.
You're translating it to a different culture, and it doesn't change the story. It doesn't. You're just reading it. It's literally just changing the binding over.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't have a problem with that at all.
That's why I haven't bought the new version of Akira in hardcover, because I'm never going to read it.
Oh, I
could buy it. Yes, they did it the other way. And there's a part of me that's like, yes, but you want it because it's Akira. And I'm like, yeah, but it's stupid. I'm not going to read it.
Why don't you find somebody to bind it for you?
You know how much that would cost?
Yeah, a couple $100.
I can't realistically justify that, especially because I have.
Well, everybody, I know what Joe needs for Christmas.
Yeah, sure. If anybody knows of a good hardcover edition that is left to right, let me know, and I will pay for it.
You know what? I hate to tell you this too, because I have a pretty good hardcover edition of it, but it's all in Spanish.
Yeah. I was going to say if I spoke Spanish or read Spanish, then I would probably get it.
It's so funny. Yeah.
And it's a beautiful box set. I've actually held they're beautiful, but I'm not going to ever read it.
I wonder how much that would cost to rebook bind.
To have it rebound? Because
Yeah.
It's not just rebinding. You have to digitally take all the pages. You have to reverse them correctly. It is not as simple as just flipping the pages. You have to you have to repanel it. Or sorry, you have to take all the English and you have to move it. I've done it.
Yeah.
Not for Akira.
Right.
I've done it with other things that were short. And it takes a long time. Let me tell you, I did it with Battle Angel Alita. I did all the Battle Angel Alitas, and I reversed them all. Because I'm a lunatic.
God, you are special, yeah.
I really am. And that was what told me I could never do Akira, because Akira is so much longer. When I say Battle Angel Alita, I only did the first run. I did not go into the last Lost Battle, whatever. No, I didn't like any of that stuff. I end with the first 12, and that's it.
Yeah, but
and
you
those
did the
are
first 12.
Relatively short. Yeah, but the first 3 or 4 are pretty short. They're not really long. Yeah, I did. I'm an asshole. What do you want from me?
No, I'm cool with it. You're adorable. I love it. You know what it is though? There was a time in your life where you had the time.
Yeah, that's another thing.
So you did it. Like that's the thing. It's like there's plenty of stuff like that now that you look at. You're like, God, if I had the time, I would totally do that. But you're like, I can't flip Akira.
I will say this.
Yeah.
If anybody has used an AI tool that would do it for me, then tell me, and I will pay for that. That I would pay for. If it would rearrange them for me. And then I could print that out. I mean, I'd have to find somebody who would print something that's copyrighted material in a hardcover.
Yeah, well, there's that. Yeah, no, but I mean, I think there's people who do special projects like that because if it's a one-off, they'll bind something for you,
and that's fine. So if there's an AI tool that will correctly reassemble everything, then I would do that. But I'm not going to do it myself because it takes a long time.
Too much time,
here's the other problem: my OCD will not allow me to leave visual imperfections. So when I do it, I have to cut around words and then recreate that. Yeah, it's insane.
Yeah, you'll do it hard. You'll do it like it matters. Yeah.
It is not a healthy use of my time.
But here's the thing. That's what I love about that otaku nature. It's the whole, if we're going to do it, let's fucking do it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Don't pussyfoot around it. Don't say it's good enough. No. Let's give it heart and soul.
Yes.
You know? So it's I find that admirable, sir. Yeah. And on that note,
I only did it once. So on that note, yes, by all means, if you find a tool that does that, let me know. That's your homework for the weekend, everybody, if you so choose to make it your homework for the weekend. Otherwise, if you've been holding off on the Uzumaki adaptation, I would say watch it. If you are a fan of the Chucky movies, that documentary is on Shudder and AMC Plus, I want to say.
If you like West Wing, check out Diplomat.
Oh, yeah, Diplomat. And that's probably it. Yeah, I think that's it. Isn't it? Yeah, that is.
Yeah,
all right, have a great weekend. Yeah, we'll talk to you next week. Bye! Visit OzoneNightmare.com to subscribe to new episodes, browse through our back catalog, or to find links to support the show. Follow @OzoneNightmare on Twitter for the latest episode postings and other show information. If 280 characters just isn't enough, you can always email us, theozonenightmare@gmail.com. The opening theme for the show is provided by Heartbeat Hero. The closing theme is provided by Ogre. Please visit and support these artists using the links in the show notes for each episode.